evening. Welcome to our Board of Education Candidate Forum, hosted by Voorheesville PTA. I'm Jennifer Hampton, and wandering is Liz Brown, and we are moderators and helpers for this evening's event. We have 4 candidates this year for 2 positions on the school board, and all 4 are participating this evening. We have Robin Willoughby, next to her, Erica Smitkin, next to her, Vinny Canisso, and next to him on monitor, as not able to be exactly with us this evening, but is with us nonetheless, R.G. O'Leary. Thank you all for being here and participating. We really appreciate your participating in the forum. We have a variety of questions representing important facets of school board work, and I will begin with some questions. If anyone has questions they would like to ask, have asked of the candidates, Liz has pink cards that you can write them down. She has pens ready for you as well. Give them back to her, and we will do our best to ask the most questions that address the most issues in the time that we have. We're going to plan for about an hour of time. I will ask the questions of each candidate. Each candidate will have a chance to respond to each one, and we'll go in various orders to try to be fair. I'll explain this to them a little. With that said, are we ready for the first question? Okay. In rotation A, starting with RG, we'd like to get to know you better. So please tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you chose to run for the school board.
Sure. Thanks, Jen. First of all, I want to apologize for not being able to be there in person. This is not how I wanted to participate in the candidate forum, but unfortunately, public health laws require otherwise. So I'm stuck at home. But a little bit about me. So I've been a member of the board for the last 2 years. It's been a whirlwind experience, and I've certainly learned a lot. I've lived in Voorheesville for about over 10 years. We moved from the New York City area with our 3 boys. And we chose Voorheesville because of the school district. We, at the time we were moving, my youngest we knew he was in need of special education services. And my older 2 were already in private schools since we were outside of the city. And we didn't want to have to make that choice. We wanted to move to a really good public school district. And Voorheesville was where we chose to move. In my professional life, I'm an attorney. I've started my legal career as a prosecutor with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and I've had a number of opportunities to move in and out of government service. Most recently, I was a deputy commissioner with the New York State Tax Department, and I left there at the end of the year and moved to a private tax consulting firm. And in terms of why I ran for the school board, so for me, it was really about community service and giving back to the community. I'd already served the community in a number of other ways. I heard Vinny say he was coming from T-ball. I also coached T-ball when my kids were little, and served on the board of CYO basketball, New Scotland Soccer Club. So I'd already served the community in a number of ways, but wanted to continue to give back. And I don't know, Jen, if you want us to get into qualifications to serve. If so, I can jump right into that.
That'll actually be my next question, so hold on just a second for that.
Okay, sure. But in terms of running for the board, really it was about giving back. And now that I've been on the board, I see that we have a lot of work to do, and I'd like to be able to continue to serve the board as a trustee.
Okay.
Thanks.
One thing for you guys, the little cards that are being held up, green is you're good, yellow is you're within 30 seconds of the end of it, you guys, and red is 2 minutes out. Just to give you that.
I was wondering.
Just so you know.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is Vinny.
2 minutes?
Yes, please.
All right, awesome. Thank you for the PTA for hosting us tonight, and thank you for all the parents for coming out tonight. My name is Vinny Canisso. I grew up in Albany, and my wife and I got married in 2013, and that's when we chose and decided, like many parents probably here tonight, to move to Voorheesville because of the school district. We love the idea of the small town and the small community, and really how good Voorheesville School District is. Professionally, I own a small business. That is my full-time career. I own and operate Nonstop Music, which is a DJ company. I provide DJ services for weddings and events. I joined earlier this year in the Voorheesville Volunteer Fire Department. Like RG said, I'm coaching right now my son's T-ball, and I coached earlier this year, beginning of this year in soccer. My son's in kindergarten. I have a 4-year-old who will be entering the kindergarten in the 2023-2024 school year. And I really signed up to be a school board member because I'd love to just participate more and get parents involved more. And when I was advocating earlier in the year back in August for parent choice regarding some of the mask mandates that were being talked about and discussed, I was really just advocating for parent choice. So I thought to myself as the year went on, how can I help? How can I get more involved? How can I get parents to encourage them to get more involved? Because really I would love to see a lot more parents come to these meetings, and I really think I could help with that. I think I'm approachable, I think I'm sensible, and I would love to see a lot more parents get involved, and I have a really vested interest in my son and my daughter's education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Robin.
My name is Robin Willoughby. I first moved to the Voorheesville area in 2013. I currently do have 2 sons in the district. I have a 5th grader and a 7th grader. Since I moved to the district, I have done a little bit of everything in the community. I see some familiar faces. I have coached or co-coached Kiwanis baseball, Kiwanis soccer. I've been a Lego league coach, a Boy Scout den leader. I was the popcorn colonel who was in charge of fundraising for the Cub Scouts. That is actually a role, yes. And most recently, I joined Dollars for Scholars at the start of the school year. Overall, I always feel it's absolutely essential to be involved in your community. Sooner than I realized, my children won't be part of the school district anymore, but I still want to make sure Voorheesville continues to be the strong district that it is, which frequently places it just about every year in one of the top 10 districts in the capital region. I'd like it to stay there, particularly with the growth that we've had recently. I'd like to include more of these people and again, continue to grow in a positive manner. Why am I joining the school board? Basically for the same reason. Again, since I moved to Voorheesville from 2015 until today, I've got myself as involved as possible because I do truly care about the community.
And Erica, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Erica Smitkin. I have 3 kids. I have twins that are 11 and my youngest is 3. I also moved to the district in 2013. That seems to be a common theme here. In my professional life, after I graduated high school, I went into state service. I've been in state service for about 16 years now. I've had the opportunity to work for various different agencies, most notably the Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Tax and Finance, and I've currently been at the Comptroller's office for the past 6 years. Also specifically pursued Voorheesville for the small, intimate district and community that we have here. Why I want to run is also the same that all 3 of these wonderful people said. I want to be more active. I want to take more of a leadership role. I want to have more of an impact on my kids' education. You know, being a parent, we have stake in the education system. So I want to be a part of that.
Thank you. Okay, now some of you have commented a little on this, but maybe you can make other comments, or if you're all set, then you can let us know. Our second question is, what are your qualifications to serve on the board, and what professional or life experiences do you have that will help you with this position? And during rotation, we started with Rob.
Okay, this is good timing because I realize I completely forgot to tell you all what I do during the day. I do feel I'm qualified to be on the school board because when I'm not doing assorted activities here in the district, I'm a teacher. I am a Spanish teacher in Greenville Central School District, which is about 30 minutes from here. In addition to being a Spanish teacher, I am also the World Languages Department Chair. So I am comfortable and I am very used to having experience working with other people to make important decisions going forward. Sometimes they are difficult decisions. I do feel that is a huge asset to bring to the board. I think it's important, particularly in light of the past 2 years, to make sure the voice of educators is heard. Again, especially as the district is growing, I want to make sure we move in a positive direction that best meets the needs of all of our students.
Okay, thank you. Next, RG, would you please address that question? What are your qualifications and life and professional experiences?
Sure, thanks. So in terms of my qualifications, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an attorney. So in my professional experience, I've had to deal with criminal law issues, employment issues, um, government funding issues. So all sorts of issues that confront the school district, albeit in a slightly different context. But I think those experiences have prepared me well for the types of issues that I'm going to come across as a board member. As a parent, I have 3 very different children. And that's allowed me to kind of see the education system from lots of different perspectives. And I think I bring that experience to my board service as well. In terms of qualifications, I think a large part of what makes somebody a good board member is their temperament and whether they have the right temperament for the job. And I think I have the personal qualities that have made me a good board member. I'm calm, I'm thoughtful, I'm a good listener, and I'm certainly willing to work hard to get the work done that we need to do and make sure that our district continues to serve our students as best as it possibly can. And I'll also say, just in terms of temperament and in terms of my life experience, I've always taken the approach that my personal experience is no more important than anyone else's, and everyone has something to contribute. So even when I've had leadership roles that were leading a large organization, I always made sure to gather information, solicit information and input from as many voices as possible. Keep an open mind, hear people out, because I think those are the things that you need to do to make sure that you get to the right decision. And I've tried to bring that perspective to the board service that I've had for the last 2 years, and I would certainly continue to do that if I were elected to another term.
Thank you. Erica.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I agree with RG being a parent. I think it's definitely a great qualification, right? Because you're experiencing firsthand what these students need, what they want, what they're going through. So I think that makes us valuable. In a professional setting, I have extensive customer service experience, administrative experience. I have experience in purchasing, reconciling, policy and procedural writing. So I think all of those things would definitely make me an asset to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, great question. So I agree with all you guys. So I think being a parent, first and foremost, is probably the best, the #1 qualifier. Again, I have a vested interest in what education my son is receiving. So when I think all of you, and what I do every weekend provides me unique challenges, working with different sets of personalities every weekend and trying to accomplish a very specific vision for what I do every weekend. So working with different types of personalities, I think I have that personality where I would bring that to the board, where we would, we would be presented with unique issues and challenges, and I think I could work together with the board if I were elected, but more importantly, with the parents. I think I have that approachability where parents can come up to me and approach me with issues and concerns, and then I can bring those issues to the board and we can figure out a solution. So that's probably my best qualification I think I could have, is really learning from you guys and finding out what is important and what do we need to do and how do we address those issues. That's by far probably my best qualification I think I could bring to the board. My education is my education. I have a bachelor's degree. As far as my education goes, my professional experience provides me, again, very unique challenges that I get to experience every weekend, and being part of the community that I love serving here in Voorheesville, especially with the fire department. Those qualifications right there, I'm going to make a commitment. If I do get elected to this board, I'm going to be here and I'm going to participate, and I'm going to hope to engage a lot of you as well.
Thank you. Okay. How many school board meetings have you attended prior to your candidacy or seat on the board? And have you ever spoken at a board meeting, and if so, on what topic? Our first responder will be here.
Yeah, so to date, I've only personally been into one meeting. I've watched a lot of them on the YouTube channel, but I did only attend one in person. I have not publicly spoken at a meeting to date. No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Honestly, I think I've only been to maybe one or two board meetings. Unfortunately, the district I work for, our board meetings are also Monday nights. But I have been able to, and I make a point to try to go back through. I like to check the agenda and then read through the minutes to see kind of what did I miss. Do I need to follow up and ask somebody a question and anything I'm curious about? And I have not spoken before at a meeting like this.
Okay.
What was the second part of the question? Was how many?
Have you ever spoken
Yes.
at a board meeting, and if so, on what topics?
Okay, so certainly. So I've been to a handful of board meetings. August was my first time when Frank and the board were discussing and rolling out the mitigation policies that were going on, and I did speak out of that. My first, I think I commented to the board members, some are here tonight, and I said, I don't envy you. I said, you have a very difficult and tough job. So I'm kind of putting my mouth where, my money where my mouth is right now by running for the board. But I did tell them they had a tough job, and I just asked them if they could give the parents the choice to make the decision whether or not to mask their kid. This was back in August. The next time was I wrote in October, just questioning what is the board doing for our kids' mental health regarding, the imposition of putting on masks. I wanted to know if there was anything at all. The next time was in February, where I approached the board again, and I asked them if we could conduct a survey to find out what the parents in the district wanted, whether or not a mask optional policy is something the majority of parents would want or would even consider what that would look like. I asked to put a motion on the floor if somebody would. That wasn't brought up that night, but I just was asking the board if they could do that, because I really didn't know. Honestly, if the majority of parents said this is not what we want, then that's not what the parents want. But I had no idea, nobody knew. And then lastly, I believe it was in March. I came here to the board and spoke in March. I think the Altamont Enterprise linked a video to that one where I was a little critical. I just I didn't take the win of Kathy Hochul, ending the mask mandate. I didn't take that as a win. I thought the board had the opportunity and power maybe to kind of rescind that. That was just my opinion, and I wanted to voice that, and I did. So I'm not afraid to speak out. It's something that if I believe strongly in or passionately about, especially when it involves my little child and some of yours. So that was my stance. So that is what I approached the board. Those were the only times. This is the first year I've had a child in the school district.
Thank you. And RG?
So for the last 2 years, I've attended every board meeting since I've been on the board. Before that, I was someone more like Erica and Robin, who would review the agendas and watch the meetings if they were posted, or read the minutes and follow up in that way and just keep tabs on what the board was doing. But I will say I give a lot of credit to the people who have given their time and energy and frustration, I'll say, to come before the board and share their views, because I do think it's important for the board to hear from the community and for the community to have an opportunity to raise issues in a public forum for the board's consideration. So I do really have an appreciation, though, for those who choose to come before the board and let us know their concerns.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question I have for you comes from the audience, and is, how would you define the role of a school board member? And we'll be starting with Vinny.
Boy, wow. So this is an elected body, elected by you, the community members, the parents, taxpayers of the Voorheesville School District. So that role plays a critical part in our kids' education. And not only that, but the taxes that are levied on some of you taxpayers out there, the majority of the taxpayers out there as well. So, and policies that get put into place that ultimately impact, our kids' education. So the role of a school member is very important.
How would you see that as different from school administration staff?
So the staff and the administration really, they kind of bring recommendations to the board, and the board really then obviously takes those recommendations and those issues up together and comes forward with new policies. So really the board has I'm sorry, there was a question coming in. Okay. So the board really has a big role to play as far as what curriculum and what the superintendent and what the teachers are wanting. So I'm not really sure how to answer that question, other than it's really important to listen to your teachers, your staff, and what the superintendent is saying. If there are issues, then those issues get brought to the board, and that board, if I'm elected, if anybody's elected here, has to come up with ideas and solutions and how to move forward.
Erica,
Can you ask it again? I'm sorry.
absolutely. How would you define the role of a school board member?
Sure. So really, to put it simply, is to hold the school district accountable, right? As far as the staff and administration, their role is to be involved in the day-to-day. And like Vinny said, bring ideas to the board. The board either votes it in or doesn't, but they're not involved in the day-to-day. They're approving curriculum, approving budgets, those types of things. The board is the voice for the public within the school district, so.
Archie.
So thanks, Jed. I think our responsibility really is to serve the students, the teachers, and the community as best we can within our resources. So that includes being good fiscal stewards of the district's resources. We approve the budget, so we need to make sure that we're spending our resources as best as we can to make sure we serve our students as well as we can. If you look at the law, education law really defines the board's role pretty narrowly. We hire and manage the superintendent, and we set policy. And I think the current board at least has taken both of those responsibilities very seriously. And we have a great superintendent, Frank McCree, and we're really fortunate that we were able to bring Frank on board and that he's been leading our district, particularly through some pretty tumultuous times. But managing and hiring and managing the superintendent is one of our most important functions. Beyond that, we also have the responsibility to set policy for the district, and the policy really directs how we expect the district to be run. Rachel Gilker is the chair of the policy committee, and I'll give her a lot of credit for really delving into our policy manual. There are sections in there that haven't been touched in decades. And we're doing the work of kind of slogging through the policy manual. I sit on the policy committee as well, to making sure that our policies are consistent with our priorities in terms of how the district gets run. So, the board's role is not to kind of manage the day-to-day. That falls to the superintendent and the building principals. But we're certainly there to offer guidance, to set policy, and to make sure our expectations are clear on how we want the district to be run.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. How would you define the role of a school board member?
So the role of the school board member is to be sure that we are listening to the needs and concerns of the community. And then as a board collectively, we need to work collaboratively to make sure that we are making decisions that best meet the needs of our students and all stakeholders involved. And certainly being fiscally responsible and making sure we provide the most that we possibly can with the resources that we have at our disposal.
Thank you. Next question. It's one final question about school board. What committees are you interested in serving on? And we're starting with RG.
Thanks, Jen. So currently I chair the audit committee, and that's I've done it for the last 2 years, and that is a position I would be happy to continue in. The audit committee, one of the priorities I've had while I've been on the audit committee is to make sure that we're bringing greater transparency to the district's finances. And one of the things that we were able to work together with the administration to put in place was some reporting around every dollar that gets spent by the district. So I call it the functional summary. It's basically a breakdown of categories of spending, and then how much we expect to spend, and then how much we've actually spent or encumbered. So that when you look at the district's finances, you can really see how are we doing against what we projected for our spending in each of the major categories of spending. So I think bringing that transparency to the community has been a really important, I'll say, step that we've made in the audit committee, and I would hope we could continue and build on that progress in the future. I also serve on the policy committee, and that is where a lot of the real work gets done by the board in terms of rewriting, or in some cases drafting policy. As an example, we drafted and got in place this year a policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that was a really important policy for us to get in place. So I was glad we were able to do that. The other two committees are facilities and the curriculum committee. I'd be happy to serve on either of those as well, but I think the current leadership of those committees is doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you, RG. Cindy.
Yes, I'd be interested as well in serving on the audit committee. I would love to get an in-depth analysis of kind of the expenditures that take place within the district. I obviously have no knowledge, just being an outsider, if you will. So I would love to get an insight and definitely provide a lot more transparency and find out what the school district is spending their money on, areas we can improve. Because as a taxpayer, I mean, we can only, be taxed so much. So as an audit committee, we definitely would like to see kind of where the school district is kind of, spending the money. The facilities committee is interesting to me as well. I'm not sure if that falls in line with like the construction project that is coming up. Because I know the elementary school has a big construction project coming up as well, but I definitely would like to see maybe a little side committee as well, like a community outreach, if you will. I'd love to share that. I'd love, like I said, one of my goals for running is really to get a lot more parents involved. And I don't know how you do that, but if we can set up a little side committee, maybe work with the PTA and try to get parents, and maybe some of the teachers who are within the district as well, get them a little more engaged in some of these meetings, some of the times that I came here, there was only maybe 5 or 7 people attending. So I'd like to see those numbers rise. And I'd really like to see, if we could create maybe a subcommittee as well, if that's possible, I don't know. But community outreach, but I know we have a big construction project coming out. So I think I would like to be part of the audit committee. Thank you.
Robin?
Not surprisingly, I am most interested in being part of the curriculum. I think it's important that in the field of education, sometimes it can be very trendy. Curriculum comes and goes, and unfortunately, it's not always based off of what is best for students, what is most manageable for teachers, or how this particular curriculum plays out in the classroom every day. There's much more that goes into it than I think some people realize. I would like to be part of that curriculum committee to see why we choose the curriculum that we do. Certainly, I'm in favor of everything that my children have brought home. But just, as always, I'd like to see, what we choose, why we choose it. It's always important to see what are other districts using. Have they found this to be the most effective? Is this the most efficient way for us to do things? There's always ways that I feel like we can always do things more to maximize students' potential. In addition to the curriculum committee, I would also be interested in serving on the policy committee. I was happy to hear that there was, as RG mentioned, a diversity, equity, and inclusion. There was a push for that, and I would certainly like to be involved with that to make sure it continues.
Thank you. Erica?
Yeah, so I also would like to be on the curriculum committee for all the same reasons that Robin said. I think also it would be important for parents to get a better understanding of it all and to have that transparency so that they can understand everything that goes into it. Because just as a parent, not on the board, as like an outsider, I don't know everything that goes into it. And sometimes it can be frustrating when you don't understand all the ins and outs. So if we can put that transparency out there, then I think everybody can be on an even playing field. So to me, that is very important. And then secondly, I think being on the facilities would be interesting. I do have a big interest in that big project as well. It's going to make that school a lot safer too.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And on location B. And the next question, I said location B.
Oh, sorry.
And the next question is, what is a major issue facing public education today? We'll start with that.
I think a major issue, unfortunately, is not a new issue. Of course, there's always funding. We want to always make sure we can provide as much as possible, but then within the community's means, we don't want to overtax everyone. We want to make sure it's something that all of us can afford. Particularly the last 2 years, people's finances today may be very different than what they were 2 years ago. So I do think that we need to make sure we keep that in mind as we look at the budget. The other thing that I would like more of a focus on, and I know that Voorheesville has certainly been moving in this direction and we've made a lot of positive growth, is really focusing on students' mental health in a genuine way. I know sometimes students don't always receive the best support only because, unfortunately, schools may not always have sufficient numbers of social workers or school psychologists, or if they do, their caseload may be very, very heavy, and they don't necessarily get to the students as much as they would like to. And that is something I think that we need to pay more attention to.
Thank you. RG, next to you. A major issue facing public education today.
Thanks, Jen. So I actually agree completely with Robin. Funding is always going to be a concern, and for a district like Voorheesville, we are mostly taxpayer funded. So we need to continue to make sure we are, faithful stewards of the district's finances. The other issue I was going to raise too was, and this is particularly important, I think, coming out of the pandemic, especially when our kids experienced so much isolation and didn't have opportunities to engage with each other. I think we really need to be focused on the social and emotional health of our students. One of the roles that I've been serving in since I joined the board was as a member of the advisory committee to the school counseling program. And I was able in that role to advocate successfully with the board to secure some more resources for the school counseling program over the last couple of years. We were able to add a social worker to the elementary school who over this past year has also done some double duty in the middle school. But I agree that we really need to focus on this and make sure that our students' mental and social needs are supported.
Thank you, Margie. Eric?
Yeah, so I agree with both of them wholeheartedly. Additionally, I think keeping our education focused on, I want to say this properly, just give me a second. We just want to keep it based on just education, right? Not on anything having to do with race-based things or sexual things that we're seeming to push onto our younger age children. That's just a personal opinion of mine. So I think that it's been ever changing over the years. So I think we need to just bring it back to the basics.
Okay. And
Yeah, I think all three hit the nail right on the head. I think funding is primarily going to be one of the biggest issues our school districts are always going to continue to face, and how we're going to continue to be fiscally responsible, to the taxpayers. And additionally, I would like probably more transparency into what goes into the kids' curriculum. What are they learning? What are they teaching? I'd like to see more of that, and I think that might be one of the issues. I think I see probably across the country is like what's going on, what's going into kids' curriculums, but how involved parents can be in deciding what gets added into the kids' curriculum. So I think transparency is probably second to funding.
okay, thank you. Okay, moving to C. The board members are asked to make important decisions affecting our schools. How do you go about making decisions as a board member?
First and foremost, I think it's really important to make informed decisions. So you need to make decisions based on data and facts. Any specific topic, you could research it in other local school districts. You could even research them in other states just to see what other people are doing, how other people are handling them. Perhaps they have better ideas than what you're doing currently, but definitely making informed decisions.
I think that a school board member, regardless of what the decision may be, it's important that we all discuss it as a group and decide what would work best. Obviously, if I were to be elected, I would have the least experience of anyone on board. So I think it's important to check in with each other to see what experience do they have, what knowledge do they have that they can bring to make a decision. There could be something that I would not even have thought of. So that's why I think it's really important that the board works as a group to reach decisions.
Repeat the question one more time.
Absolutely. Board members are asked to make important decisions affecting our schools. How would you go about making decisions as a board member?
I think that's a great question. That really kind of comes down to you want to use this term loosely, like the will of the people. What is the majority saying? What are parents saying? What are teachers saying? And then you bring that approach to the board and the consensus of the board, and it has to be reflective of what the community wants. So in a lot of choices, I mean, it was a great point when you said, informed decisions using data and stats. Those are helpful. Those are definitely helpful in making informed choices and decisions, but really kind of the will of the people. What do the parents want? What are the teachers saying? What is this just, you have to work together and kind of come to some kind of consensus.
And Arjun?
Well, my response is similar to those that the others have given. I mean, you really have to make sure you're informed. You don't want to make decisions based on your gut, particularly when there's data or information that you could gather that could help you make a better or the best decision. So, that involves soliciting input from stakeholders, which could include, parents, teachers, community members, students. I think it's important that we call on our students too and engage their input. And I'll just point out that up for a vote on May 17th also is a proposal to add a student member to the board. And that's not a voting member, but it gives a student the opportunity to participate and provide the board with further input on behalf of students in terms of the decisions that we're making, which I think is a really great thing. But yes, it's engaging stakeholders and also, being willing to accept compromise, because there are plenty of decisions that are going to come before the board where everyone's not going to get exactly what they want out of it. There's compromise, there's recognizing common ground, there's building consensus. I think all of those aspects are an important part of how the board makes decisions.
Thank you, Arjun. Okay. 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of Title IX. Do you think this act is still relevant and or needed? First responder will be Willoughby.
I'm not gonna lie, what's Title IX?
Title IX is the mandate about equal participation for sports from girls and boys. So equal numbers of sports for girls and boys.
Can you clarify one more? I'm not sure I understand the question, so again, I have kindergarten, so I'm not sure if I've approached this yet.
So in high school,
Sure.
kids, there's sports offered. There have to be an equal number of girls' sports and boys' sports available.
Okay. I know how to answer that question, but it sounds fair to me.
Girls can't play football. So there has to be a girls' sport, right?
Okay.
For example, yeah. So sometimes, every once in a while, there is a girl playing football, but it's pretty rare.
So the question is, Title IX, how is,
Do you think the act is still relevant and or needed?
I really don't know how to answer that because I don't have a kid old enough yet to go there. So I guess, that's where I would rely on the knowledge of the institutional members on the board to guide me along to those policies and really steer me along and give you the information that I would need to know to make an informed choice or decision.
Okay.
I feel the same way as Vinny. I do have children in the middle school, and I still am unsure how to go about answering this question, to be honest with you.
Okay. Arjun.
Yeah, so I'll say I think it's absolutely still relevant and important to keep Title IX in place. You don't peel back protections just because you think you've achieved the goal. And I'll say in Voorheesville, the district has tried really hard to ensure that there's equity in our athletic programs in terms of girls and boys programs. One of the things we have coming up for the audit committee is a discussion on athletic funding. And that's not geared directly towards Title IX issues, but more in terms of getting more information out to the community in terms of how we are funding our athletic programs. But yes, I think Title IX is still relevant. I think it's important to try and ensure that there is equity in terms of opportunities for boys and girls in athletics.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I absolutely still think Title IX is essential. I still think it's important. I don't think there will ever be a time where I will think it's not necessary to make sure we provide equal access to all students to play sports. We want to make sure students are involved as possible here at school. The more connections students have to school, the greater success they will have in the classroom. They tend to have better health, possibly better social outlets. So it's really important that we make sure every student is able to find a place where they can belong and where they can achieve and grow. So absolutely, Title IX is still essential. Yeah.
This is an interesting question for the audience, not really others weren't, but this is totally different. Breaking it up, we're going with rotation A, and it's describe yourself in one word. Maybe a sec to think, but let's go into RG first.
Oh man, I was hoping I would be fourth on this one. You know, I think the word I would describe is measured. I like to always be thoughtful about the issues that are put before me. I don't overreact one way or the other. I try and just sort of take a calm and balanced approach. So I like the word measured. And I'll also throw in there, in terms of measured, I try and achieve what I think most people would view as a common sense approach. So that's my word. Good question.
Thank you. And Vinny.
I'm laughing because I think this was probably from the 2016 Republican campaign when they were asking the nominees and they asked Donald Trump and he came to the mic and he said humped and everybody laughed hysterically. But if I had to describe myself in one word, I'd be motivated.
Thank you, Robin.
Just one word? Just one word, I would say helpful. Regardless of the situation, I always try to help somebody out if I can. I have said to my children more times than they would like to hear, that if there's ever an opportunity you can help someone, you should. And whether that's something as simple as, oh, hey, you dropped something, let me pick this up for you, to, wow, I see you're really struggling. Do you want to talk? What's going on? I would absolutely say helpful for myself, since I'm limited to one word.
Thank you. And finally, Erica.
One word, I would say relatable. I think that I can relate to most people. I have a common ground with almost anybody I meet, and my word is relatable.
Okay, thank you. The next question is not one word. How would you engage and include all taxpayers, not just the ones with kids? Not just the ones with kids currently in the district, especially when it comes to spending taxpayers' money for capital projects. I'll repeat because I misspoke. How would you engage and include all taxpayers, not just the ones with kids currently in the district, especially when it comes to spending taxpayers' money on capital projects?
I think the best way to do that would be to make sure that everyone's informed. If you don't have children in the school, you don't know what's going on all the time. You don't have children in the school, it probably doesn't matter to you that much what they may or may not be doing to the elementary school, if they are changing anything with the vestibule, with the entrance. And certainly they have different priorities. If it is an older person and they have a fixed income, they are going to have different priorities than a family who has children attending the school. So I think the most important thing that you can do is make sure that you have provided the information to the community. I know people have used the word transparency. Again, to make sure that everyone is aware of sort of what's on the table.
Archie.
Thanks, Jen. So I think you would do the things that the board would normally do. So you would, have discussion in board meetings. You would make sure those meetings were posted and available to the public. You would host public forums and invite public comment. Those, I think, are sort of the bare minimum in terms of making sure people are informed. And I think, one thing the board did more of pre-COVID, and I hope we can get back to it at some point, is actually going on the road. That's something that I did, in my role as a deputy commissioner at tax. If I had an important message to share, either with my employees or the public, you go and you meet your constituents where they are, whether that's, in a library forum, a community event, local churches, community centers, Kiwanis Club. There are lots of community organizations, I think, that could help the district get the message out, particularly when it comes to large funding projects and other investments like that, where the community is going to be asked to pitch in. But I think we need to go sort of engage the public where they are more when it comes to some of these larger investments that we're asking taxpayers to make.
Thank you. Erica.
Yeah, so I definitely think having public forums, one thing that I think would be very helpful would be having surveys. I think that that's such a great tool that really gauges the public interest, what they're really looking for and wanting.
Okay, and
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what Eric and what RG said. Is exactly what I was thinking. I mean, I'm a big fan of surveys, so I like, getting surveys. So social media is a great tool. I'm not sure if some of the other community really kind of goes on there and utilizes that a lot. But flyers do work, and small public forums, especially I know the Firehouse would love to host some of those, and to get some of those community members down there and actively engage them and find out, what they're thinking, what their concerns are, and how that's going to impact them. You'll find out a lot. So having those types of tools at your disposal are very helpful.
okay, thank you. Okay, I have two questions here related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. One is to explain your views on DEI and how we can continue to include students. The other one has to do with the Florida's Don't Say Gay law. And how do you feel about this? And similar litigation in other states have been in the news lately about this Don't Say Gay law. How do you feel about this and approach, and do you feel there should be something similar? Or how are we talking about including all students regardless of who they are? We could address that issue. And we'll be starting there.
Sure. So I'll start with the second question. To be quite honest, I haven't read much about it, so I'm not well informed on that topic. As far as inclusion, I had an idea about, we're voting in a student member to be on the board, and I thought it would be a great idea to have a subcommittee, or, like how we have facilities or curriculum, to have a committee of students that they could really bring the ideas of their peers. And I feel like that would really help sort of close the gap with inclusion and all of those topics.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you repeat the question, please? Yes. So the question, the first is about explaining your views on DEI and how we can continue to include all students regardless of who they are. And the other is about the Don't Say Gay law and how do you feel about that and whether there should be similar policies in our school.
As far as diversity, equity, and inclusion, I absolutely think it's essential. I'm happy that more school districts are looking into it and seriously incorporating it into what they do every day. Even in a community like Voorheesville, which, if we look around, it does not appear to be very diverse. However, every family is different. We all bring different things here to the district. And I think that we need to make sure that that's recognized and that's appreciated. Again, we want to make sure everyone is included. It is a school. It is a community. We should all be part of it. As far as Florida's don't say gay, it is not something that I agree with, and I don't think it is something that we need to have here in New York State.
Thank you. And Vinny.
I think Voorheesville does a great job of being inclusive. My son's only in kindergarten, but I mean, they do a great job, you know, teaching them to, you know, to respect everybody and being as inclusive as you possibly can. I don't have, as far as outside of that, I haven't heard too much in Voorheesville, but that could change. As far as the second part, I don't believe that's what it's called. So whoever wrote that, that's not what it's called. That's the slur, that's the slander. It is, I understand that, that's, you know, that's where we're going, but that's not what it's called at all. So, and I don't think we have that here in New York State. I think it's, we didn't even, they talk about sex education to like 6th grade here. I think it's already a law, I believe. But yeah, I do agree with the idea of what Florida did. I think younger kids are too young to introduce any type of sexual or gender ideology at that age. So I agree with what Governor DeSantis did, but I don't think they're pushing that here in New York, or I could be wrong. But I don't see that happening in my son's kindergarten, or not hearing about it.
Okay, and Archie.
So as I mentioned earlier, we did get in place a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy earlier this year, which I think was an important step, but it's really just a step. You know, in terms of how to make sure we're including everyone, I think it has to be a continuing conversation, a continuing, you know, it can't just be oh, let me focus on this for a few minutes and then move on to the next, right? It needs to become a part of the culture and the community in terms of making sure that we're looking for opportunities to be inclusive. And that, you know, that includes in the curriculum, it includes in how we hire, in how we treat each other. And I do think Voorheesville's doing a great job in terms of making sure that we're gathering input from students, from parents, from community members, and from our teachers and administrators while we're undertaking these efforts to be more inclusive, to increase our diversity. And I think we all recognize here that it's important for us to continue that work. I'm not going to comment specifically on Florida's law. I haven't read it, but I will say in general, I think you know, these conversations are intended to divide us, and it's not something that I would support. I think our teachers do a great job of teaching a equity-based curriculum, and it's been effective in our district, and I would hope that we would continue that.
Thank you. Okay, just a couple more. I have a couple of questions here about state mandates and protocols, and the basic question is about your understanding, your beliefs about how you balance legally required mandates with your personal beliefs. And the question is first going to Vinny.
Which mandate specifically?
I'm sorry.
Which mandate? Anyone, like recently?
It doesn't specify. This question does not specify.
Okay.
You can interpret it as you will.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll take the hot topic one. We'll take the mask one. Start there. Well, I guess it was, you know, that was very confusing because, you know, she came in at the end of August, I believe, and kind of through the DOH issued that mask mandate. And then there was a state Supreme Court ruling, I guess, back in February, claiming that her powers, it superseded her powers, or it was a stretch of her powers. That legislature, the Assembly, didn't grant her the authority to issue that. So there was a lot of confusion there. There was a state that was getting placed on there. So, you know, did we have to wear masks or not? We didn't realize she had the legal authority to do that. But so personally, I didn't think she had the power to do that. And, you know, my personal belief is I don't think the government should have the ability or the power to make you wear a medical device if you so choose not to. That's my personal beliefs, my personal stance, especially on a small young child who doesn't really know and understand how to wear one correctly. It's a half measure, if you ask me. But that really is kind of, that's just my point. That's my view. I know it's a hot bucket. It's one of those divisive topics, like you start talking about it, and I don't really want to get anybody riled up here, but that's just my view on it, my stance. I will continue to take that position, that I believe that the parents should have the choice to mask their child and send them to school, and whether or not that should be your choice. So that's my belief, that's my stance. Hopefully I answered that for you.
And Erica,
Can you just repeat the question? I'm sorry.
how do you balance legally required mandates with your personal beliefs?
Okay. So as far as my personal beliefs, initially I would, if I were to be a board member, I would go in advocating for that personal stance. But at the end of the day, the goal is to make a decision together on a united front. I believe it was RG who said earlier that you have to be willing to compromise. So if majority of the community wants one thing and you want another, then you have to conform to that. It's unfortunate, but that is life. It's the world we live in right now, unfortunately. So I personally am not a fan of masking, but if that's what we have to do, then that's what we would do.
Thank you. RG, to you.
So I think everyone is entitled to their personal beliefs and personal opinion. But when you are a member of the board, you really need to set aside your personal views. And, as a elected official and a government official, you're bound to follow the law, whether you agree with it or not. And I can tell you, even though I'm an attorney, as a member of the board, I don't, opine on the law for the district. We rely on our attorneys, advisors that the board and the district contracts with. So we're always making sure we're getting outside legal advice on what the law is and what the law requires, and not, relying on our own opinions on those types of issues. So, I think it's important to kind of, as a member of the board, set your personal opinions aside, and really focus on the work that you have to do as a board.
Thank you, RG.
I think it's important to keep in mind that mandates come from a place of, I take it as someone that knows more than I do about a particular topic. So when we have mandates that come out, I trust where they come from. And regardless, I know that it's not up to me to decide what I do on a daily basis. I don't really have that choice, really. And as RG said, if there is a mandate, I don't get to decide. I don't. As a board member, we need to, again, collaboratively decide what is best for all. And so it doesn't really matter what I would like or not.
And I have one final question for you, and it is there anything that I didn't ask you, we didn't ask you, that you really think it's important that we know about your ideas and your perspective on this task of becoming a board member? Or if there isn't something that we didn't ask you, a last thought for us. And we'll be starting with RG.
So thank you, Jen, for the questions. I think we got to air a lot of our, perspectives in this short session. So I appreciate the opportunity to come before the voters and let people know a little bit about why I'm running. I'll say, I think if anyone's been watching board meetings over the last couple of years, you've seen me in action on the board and hopefully have a good sense of the perspective that I bring and my willingness to kind of delve into issues and, unpack some of the tougher issues and hopefully bring some common sense and, perspective to the issues that come before the board. So it's been a tough couple years in terms of the issues that have come before the board. We've had to make some really difficult, I'd say in some cases, gut-wrenching decisions because we understood how they would impact our students and teachers and the community. But it's been my pleasure to serve on the board, and I look forward to another term.
And Vicky.
Thank you. Lastly and finally, I know how difficult it is to come to one of these meetings and have the courage to come up here and speak out or speak up and voice your concerns. So I would love to be that voice. A lot of the parents out there who don't feel like they have the courage or feel like anybody's listening. So I may not have a ton of the qualifications that these board members do, but I get it. Like I said earlier, I am motivated. I am motivated to be on this board. I am a very quick learner. I'm a quick study, and I hope to get involved and hope to be engaged.
I think that I would want everyone to know that I do have a lot of experience with court persons, could be a large group of people voicing their concerns to me. Sometimes or their opinions, and sometimes they're really nice, and sometimes they're really not. And I have a lot of experience, and I do it very well of listening and remember that objectively, even if the person, what they are saying sounds very different than what I'm saying, we do all have the same mission, and that we do all want the best for our community. And I think that if elected, I would serve very well with the rest of the board to continue the vision of Voorheesville School District.
Yeah, so I definitely I'm passionate about being more involved. And I want to believe that we all have the same goals. We might not have all the same ideas or ways to get there, but we all have the common goal of doing what's best for the students, what's best for the community, and I have a passion to do that. That's it.
Thank you. I want to thank you guys immensely for participating, for being on the hot seat like this with us, and taking questions, and being willing to run and serve for the students. Obviously need it, and we appreciate your willingness. I also want to thank everybody who came tonight to listen and to ask questions. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to all of them. This is being recorded and will be put on the district YouTube channel, so please share that with everybody. Let them know that it's out there, those that could not be there here this evening, so that they can educate themselves and benefit from listening to our candidates. Thank you all so much for attending. Enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Thanks, Frank.